Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast. It's your host, Bridget Cisco, and today I'm here with Christina Nicholson. Hey, Christina, how are you doing?
Hello, Bridget. I am good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm bundled up, as we were talking about. You're in South Florida. I'm in colder New Jersey, so we have opposite heats right now, but I'm glad that you're here.
Yeah, so happy to be here.
Amazing. So I know that your work is mostly in media and publicity. You have an incredible agency now, but one of the things I'm just so curious and I wanted to open up our conversation today with is your background as a TV reporter for like over a decade. So kind of tell us a little bit more about what that life was like for you, because I'm sure that I always think it's interesting too. Like what was happening during that time of your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. So I went to school for journalism, and then you start small and work your way up. Crazy enough for me, starting small meant my first job was in New York City. It obviously wasn't for, one of the main affiliates. It was for a cable station called News 12 The Bronx. And there I was my own photographer. I was my own editor. I did everything myself. And the way you apply for jobs when you are on air is with a resume tape. Tape sounds kind of outdated now. I guess we could call them reels because they're not really tapes anymore. But it's basically like you put your best work on the tape. It's like the first minute or so are what we call stand up. So where you see the reporter in the field or the anchor at their desk and just going back and forth between real quick shots, maybe five different scenes or settings. And then you put two good packages, which is like the 1 minute, 30-second story where it's edited with sound bites from different people and all of that. So I made my first tape to get to New York City through an internship that I had in college. And then from there to work your way up, you just make a new tape every place you go. You save your best stuff at every station. And so I worked my way up from News 12 The Bronx to the CBS station. Oh, no, before that, hold on. News 12 The Bronx to the ABC station in Beaumont, Texas, which is market 140, or it was 162 at the time. And to give you an idea of market sizes, there's about 212-ish. One is New York, two is LA, three is Chicago. As the number gets bigger, the market gets smaller. So,
Mm.
um, I wouldn't really count my beginning in New York City as market one because it was a cable station. It was just in the Bronx. It's very, very different when you work for a cable station versus like a network affiliate. So I would say I started in Beaumont, 162, and then from there I made a tape and I got a job in Fort Myers, Florida, which was 60 some. Okay, I think Beaumont was 140 something. I'm getting my numbers confused. Beaumont was in the 140s. Fort Myers was in the 60s. And then from there, I went to Miami, which is 16. So that's where I ended my career in Miami. And I did all of the things depending on the day. I was the photographer, I was the editor, I was the reporter, the producer. Sometimes I would fill in at the anchor desk. And, some stories were fun, but most of the stories were sad, depressing, outside of a crime scene. And after 10 years and a couple of kids, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I had my fix. This isn't good for, like, my goals just changed. Not good for family life, but obviously, like, before college, you're not thinking about family life, you're thinking about your career. So I got out of reporting full time. And then that's when I kind of went the PR route. I was on the receiving end of all of the pitches from publicists. So a lot of people go from journalism and they go to the dark side or the other side, however you want to call it. But yeah, that's my trip down memory lane of being an on-air reporter and anchor.
We love it. And it's really interesting. We did have another TV anchor that I interviewed. She was in the tri-state area, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, New York City, driving in from New Jersey as well. And she had a very similar like experience to you. It's like once she started having children, she thought, okay, something's got to give here. This is not going to be sustainable. and she was waking up at 12:30 in the morning to like get
Yep.
into the city. Did you have any crazy schedules like that too?
Yeah, I mean the schedule is just terrible. Like, and my husband at the time, he was in the golf business, and both of those jobs, it's like weekends don't matter, holidays don't matter. The only thing where he got a little bit more flexibility than I did is when it's dark, you can't golf. But for me, the darkness doesn't matter. The news is always happening. Sometimes more things go down when it's dark. So, I mean, I remember when my daughter was born, and my husband was working mornings because he's in the golf business, and then I was working evenings. Like I would go in at 2:30 and then I would be done after the 11 p.m. newscast. So I'm like driving home sometimes at 1 in the morning, and then I have to get up with my daughter at like 5 because my husband would go to work in the morning. Like that was terrible. That was a terrible time, but it was the only schedule that we could make work because we're in South Florida. Our families are not in South Florida. Like our daughter was in daycare, but that's not open at these ridiculous hours. So it was a lot of like unpleasant timing of things. But again, like I got into the industry knowing that's just part of it. But yeah, that was a big reason on why I decided to get out.
I totally understand that. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, the good thing is that you did have this understanding of the industry, so that beautifully then I would assume translates into working on the other side, the dark side in PR. So tell us a little bit more about some of your first clients and what it was like to go from like the receiving end of pitches to the one likely writing the pitches on behalf of your clients.
Yeah, so it's funny. So when I was looking to get out of TV, I remember I was looking for jobs and I was applying at all these PR agencies. And I remember one of them was like, "Well, do you have any experience pitching the media?" And I was like, "No, but I have experience like doing the stories that are pitched to me. Like I know what works and what doesn't." And I remember like this person on the other side of the email was like, "Sorry, we're looking for somebody who has experience doing this." And I'm like, "Listen, like I've literally deleted emails from you. Like if you want to know why, you could hire me and we could solve that problem." Like I was so mad. I still am mad. Um, but I ended up getting a job at an agency for 6 months, and I had a very bad experience, not because of the work, but because of the boss. Like I
Mm.
had one of those bad bosses where he just made work not fun. Like one example, I'll tell you the straw that broke the camel's back where I was like, I quit slash I was fired was when it was a holiday. It was like one of those days where the 4th of July fell on a weekend. So everybody was like off on that Monday. It was acknowledged or recognized on that following Monday. And the building that we worked in, there were like lots of offices in it, and it was closed because it was like that 4th of July was supposed to be acknowledged that day. And he was on vacation somewhere, but he was like so crazy that he wanted all of us to go into work on that day. So he had like security let us in, and then he would call every hour to make sure we were in the office working. Like that's just one example of one day. And I ended up I ended up quitting and giving my 2 weeks notice because I was like, screw this. I'm going to just do this on my own. And then during that 2 weeks, he like cut off my email, and I've never spoken to him since. So I guess he kind of fired me after I quit. That's why I say I quit slash was fired. Um, so then I was just like, I'm just getting on LinkedIn, I'm getting on Upwork, and I'm just going to take whatever I can get. And whatever people would pay me, I would do their PR. And that's kind of how I started to build like success stories to pitch to other clients. And then the first 2 years were hell. I was working 24/7. I was miserable because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like
Yeah.
I knew how to service the clients, but I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to get clients and all of that. So it was terrible because my income was very up and down. Some months would be amazing, other months would not be amazing. And some of the freelancing that I was doing was for other agencies. So that was a little less stressful because I
Mm.
would just do the work. But then I also wanted to build, my own book of business. I ended up hiring a business coach and I learned a lot about sales and when to do proposals and how to do them and how to kind of filter. I used to give a proposal to anybody who would ask. Like, what a waste of time that was. Now it's like, okay, what's your budget?
Hmm.
500 bucks? Can't help you. Go listen to this podcast. Like
Hmm.
I learned all of that a few years too late, but then I started getting busier and then I started hiring a team and then I started feeling more comfortable, like not hovering and
Hmm.
not like suffocating everybody on the team and just letting them do their thing. And then I stepped back and I was like out of the picture with the agency because I have a team who is better than me covering the day to day. And I'm here for, business development and the behind the scenes of it all. So that's where I've been for the last 10 years.
Wow. There's a lot of things here. I want to almost like zoom back to one of the first things you said, which was when you were applying for some of these agencies, they were like, oh, you don't have experience. But that to me is hilarious because you were on the receiving end of the pitches that sucked, of the pitches that you deleted, like of the ones where you were like probably showing your coworkers, like, can you believe they sent this to me? That is so interesting to me. And I think that the reason we love interviewing anchors and writers on this show because our clients want to know what's working is because we want to know what's working. And like you had the insider knowledge to that.
I know. I think that's why I was really pissed off when I got like I wish I still like had it and could find the email. I mean, I'm sure I could somewhere. Probably not. It's been too long. It's been like 11 years now. But yeah, I remember I was so mad and I was like, "No, I promise. Like I have an asset to you." It's like, and this is a terrible analogy, but it's like hiring a police officer to commit a crime. The police officer has never committed the crime before, but they know what to look for. They know how to get away with it because they're on the other side. I
Right.
was so I was so frustrated and mad about that. But yes, thank you, Bridget, for feeling my pain on that one.
You are so welcome. And this is why I like to have these conversations because it's like, yeah, what works, what doesn't work. And one of the things that you shared with us as like a really cool thing that you could talk about is the scams in your DMs. And we had a client the other day say, hey, like I just got this in my DMs. Like it's $600. Do you think I should do it? And like we have lots
Oh,
of opinions about that. And usually it's absolutely not. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you think about those.
oh my gosh. Okay. The scams and the DMs. First of all, I get them all the time. And it's like, clearly you didn't read my bio. Um, but then I like to play along. I like to keep them busy. There's a few things here to look out for. One is when they guarantee coverage. Nobody pitching the media for earned coverage can guarantee you a thing. That is not how this works. If it's guaranteed, you're paying for an ad, period. That's the only way to guarantee coverage. Or you own the media outlet, so you choose what gets put in it or on it. That's the only way. So when people guarantee you coverage, they're doing something that may appear like earned media or they're just trying to trick you. So that's number one. And I get these emails all the time and I'm always like writing back, well, how can you? And they'll say it's guaranteed, but it's not an ad. I'm like, then how can you guarantee it?
Mm.
And they'll say, like, oh, well, we just send a press release everywhere. Okay, that's press release distribution. And that is a form of an ad. That is going on a website and paying a few $100s to have a press release blasted everywhere. And you're paying for that coverage. And I'm not a big fan of that for a couple of reasons. One, the backlink that you're going to get, that's going to be no follow because it's being paid for. So you're not going to get any kind of SEO love from that backlink. Number two, I like to do press release distribution maybe once a year just to see what's happening. And every single time they reply with, here are 300 media outlets that picked up your press release. Okay. We go to those websites and we can't find it anywhere. So we use the search tab and we search keywords. Okay, well, let's use the company name, let's use your proper name, like things that would most certainly be flagged in a search bar. Nope, can't find them anywhere. Unless you have that super long
Mhm.
URL, you cannot find the press release anywhere. And then when you do find it, it's just a press release. It's very boring. I mean, to be honest, most press releases are. The goal you should want to have is for a reporter to see something come across the wire, as it's called, and say, "Oh, I'd like to do a story about this," and then contact the PR agency or contact the person mentioned in the press release to write an actual earned media article. But that very rarely happens. If that happens, like, consider yourself very lucky. So that's press release distribution. The other way people will try to scam you is they will have a contributing role at a website, or they will know somebody with one. So I used to write for Inc. magazine for a few years. And I wasn't shady because I'm like, I have the journalism background, so I'm like a stickler on this stuff. But it would be like this. Like Bridget would say, "Hey, I have this client. They make pillows." I love that pillow behind you, Bridget. So we're gonna go with that brown pillow. They make pillows and they want to be in an article about, making your home office cozier for better productivity. So could you include, this pillow in your roundup about this? And I would say, "Okay, yeah, I'll include them, but you have to give me $500."
Mhm.
That's what people would do. And they would collect money under the table to be included. Here's the problem with this. One, it's like it goes against all the FTC guidelines. Like you are not allowed to do that. If you are paying for coverage, it needs to be disclosed. Two, I can do that. I'll collect your money, I'll put it in there, but then the person editing the piece may not like that. They may edit
Mhm.
it and take that out. So then you just paid me money and you're not getting coverage because I couldn't guarantee that.
Right.
I don't control what goes in ink. So you could lose your money that way. Three, the editor could find out that I'm accepting money under the table and all of my articles will be deleted. And everybody who's ever paid me will be out money. That actually happened to a woman who was a contributor for Forbes. Her niche was Shark Tank and Shark Tank guests and items that were on Shark Tank. And she was accepting money from people under the table. She got found out, and every single one of her articles was deleted. And then lastly, this happened to actually somebody who was in my online course. She paid somebody, not knowing any better, she paid somebody for coverage in an outlet, say it was like Fashion Magazine, and that person either couldn't get the coverage in there after she paid or totally misunderstood where she wanted to be and got it in like Fashion Today magazine. Like something totally different with a similar title, but like totally different traffic. So I mean, I don't know how many reasons I just named on as to why, but like the only time you should ever spend money on media coverage is when somebody comes to you with an email address from that domain with a media kit where they are telling you exactly what you're going to get for your money. Like, this is how many people visit the website. This is how many people pick up the magazine. This is how many people listen to my podcast. These are my demographics. And this is how much it's going to cost you for a 15-second read on the podcast or for a 500-word article. Like, if you are going to give somebody money to be in a media outlet, you better damn sure make well they work for that media outlet.
I'm sitting here like giggling, nodding to myself because I'm like, yes, Christina, yes, 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 yes. And this is why we started the show too, because we wanted to illuminate what's going on behind the scenes so that people who have no idea how this industry works can understand what's going on. And that way they can find the right pathway for themselves. Like, yes, we teach them how to do it themselves, but they can go to an agency who knows how to do this, who gets and secures earned media and isn't doing paid press unless the client is understanding that that's what they want and that's what they're asking for.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's nothing wrong with paying for promotion. You
Right.
just have to know what you're paying for. It just has to be very clear because right now people don't pay attention to ads the way they used to. That's why lots of media outlets are getting clever with things. And I think everyday people with a platform are trying to take advantage of that and trick you. And it's working. So like that's why you, Bridget, and me, I'm like screaming from the rooftops, like, no, 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 don't do that. That's not the best use of your money, and this is why. So you just want to make sure that everything you're buying is not something under the table because you'll
Yeah.
lose your money, or down the road you'll lose your reputation. And another thing, this is kind of related, kind of not, but under the tricking people umbrella. Maybe this is a pet peeve of mine, but I just think it looks so dishonest and so stupid. And maybe this is just because I'm in the industry. But like, say you've been mentioned in Forbes or Fast Company or Inc. or Entrepreneur, please do not create a fake magazine cover and put your face on it. And don't, have you seen this? Like people
No.
do this. Like just screen grab the article and turn it into a pretty graphic. Like don't make it look like you're on the cover of the magazine talking. Like it just looks so dumb. And then when people like pay for the councils. Oh my God, that's another tangent I could go on. Like, I'll get these emails and they'll say, congratulations, you've been accepted into the
Oh my
Forbes
God.
Coaches Council or the Entrepreneurship Network or whatever. And they will charge you to write for them. So you're like on LinkedIn sharing these articles, like, here's something I contributed to Forbes. Well, you actually spent money
Yeah.
to write for them. Like, people think this is a credibility thing. It's just another ad, it's another way to spend money. It's not, Forbes isn't featuring you in the media. They're like flattering you in a way for you to think get you to think you're special and you're the chosen one, but you're really just paying for an ad. So like you have to read between the lines. And a lot of things like these companies don't tell you, like the Forbes Council, for example, they have a tech council, a coach, like they got a council for everything. It's not really Forbes. It's a totally other company that licenses the Forbes name. And once you write for the council, you can never contribute to like the real outlet.
Mhm.
Like it's just there's so much trickiness and shadiness, and
Yeah.
a lot of the media outlets themselves are doing it because it's a way for them to make money. Now, on the flip side, some people can do this because their audience doesn't know any better and they'll think, "Oh, I'll look cool to my audience, whatever. They don't know any better." I mean, if that's your mindset, then cool. Like you do you. But I just wish that all of these gray areas were made more clear to people because it just bothers me seeing like innocent people being tricked because it's easy to be tricked if you're not in the industry.
Yeah, I also think like in a time where trust and transparency and integrity are like probably the most important things because there's these gray areas and these things going on that people don't know about. Like it's just a shame that that is happening and most well-meaning people are
Yeah.
paying for are falling for the scams and the DMs basically
Yep.
because they want what those people are selling, not understanding like how this works in the first place and better uses of their time or money and all of that. So I'm with you. And kind of on that same vein, I'm curious what you think about like affiliate PR and how a lot of product brands now need to be on Share a Sale or Skimlinks or Amazon, and the media companies are making money off that. Because I'm like, I get both sides. I get that we need businesses to be profitable, but yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on all this.
Yeah, so I won't take a product client anymore unless they agree to have some kind of affiliate partnership with a
Yep.
platform or are sold on Amazon where that affiliate is built in because you just won't get coverage. Like 9 out of 10 times, if you are not willing to share a link where somebody else could get a kickback from a purchase that comes from it, you are not going to get coverage. So I just won't even do it anymore. And I mean, listen, I understand, like I said, people don't pay attention to traditional ads, so they got to get creative. Um, so that's what these media companies are doing. They're going to take an affiliate, 10% or whatever from every purchase that comes through, their website, which I get it, if I'm gonna write a blog post on my blog and I'm going to link to your pillow back there, you should give me a little like, oh, hey, here's a
Mhm.
little percentage. Thanks for the referral. Um, but this is something that has changed in recent years where it's like if you are a product or you sell something online and you don't have an affiliate program set up, you're not going to get coverage.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be passed over by so many other people. And then even if you do sell on Amazon, like I've seen a lot of people say like you need at least 500 reviews or we're not going to like include you. So
Mm,
you have to be like very, very much like in good standing and good reputation and have that affiliate capability. I mean, even the stuff you see on TV, you may not realize, but like the steals and deals on Good Morning America and the Today Show, they not only do you have to like slash your product price in half to be on there, you have to give a percentage to ABC or NBC,
mm,
and you have to give a percentage to the host of that segment who puts it all together. So at the end of the day, you're lucky if you make any money, but you get quite the publicity on Today or
yeah.
Good Morning America. So you should never turn that down if the opportunity presents itself. But almost everything you see, whether it be on TV or online, there is going to be some kind of affiliate component to it for sure. I think the only one who doesn't is Consumer Reports. That
Okay.
magazine that you'll see at checkout, they don't even let you know they're doing a story. Like they will be like a customer and order something and like secretly do it all. That's the only one I've heard of who is like crazy down the middle, like won't even like engage in a publicist or a business
Mm,
owner or anything. But yeah, the affiliate stuff, like you got to have affiliate links for
yep.
sure.
And that's been just a big education piece for us if we've ever like had a conversation with a product company because say they just got their first round of funding and like they're a little bit newer in the space, like they have no idea that that's pretty much a necessity, just like you said, to be able to secure any coverage at this point. So I understand, I agree, and this is why I like having these conversations because we get to peel back the curtain and show people like when they click on, best gifts for mom and dad this Christmas season, likely someone is Amazon is getting paid and so is the person on the other end and maybe the media company too. So it's very interesting.
Exactly. And if you notice the last few years with Oprah's list of favorite things, they're all on Amazon. Like that's
Interesting.
not a coincidence. There's like a reason for that.
So interesting. I want to shift into podcasts. Obviously, we're on a podcast right now recording, but I know that you have a little bit of a story of how like a podcast can lead to money. And this is something that Lydia and I try to share stories of because I think sometimes for a business owner, it's hard for them to see the linear side of what PR does for a company because it's usually not linear. It's usually like one thing that led to one door and opened another
Yes.
door. So yeah, I'd love to hear like the story or just like what you think of return on investment when it comes to PR services.
Yeah. So it's so hard to track PR. That's like the annoying thing. Is like, what's the
Yep.
ROI? I'm like, well, it depends. It depends on where you are and when you're there and who sees it at the time and what you do with it. But I can track something. So back in the day when I first left TV news, I was a guest on Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income. And around that time, I created an online course to help, teach people, how to handle this themselves in case they couldn't afford an agency. And I was so green, like so fresh out of working in TV that I didn't think like, oh, I should create something free to get people on my email list. Like I wasn't even doing that yet, which by the way, if you were ever on a podcast, you should totally do that. You got to like send people somewhere. But this person just like found me somewhere because after she listened to that, she joined my email list some way. Um, and then she ended up buying my online course. So I got an email from her and she said, hey, I heard you on Smart Passive Income. And then I joined your email list. And then I found out about your course and now I'm in your course. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So that's how that happened. So that's how one podcast led to me getting some money that way because somebody heard me and came into my ecosystem. But then a couple years later, Pat was opening up, he was starting a mastermind. So I applied, he had like, I don't know how many, 300, 400 people apply to be in his mastermind, and he only picked like 15 or something. And I was one of the people he picked. And I thought, oh, well, that was probably because he knew of me before because I was on his
Mm,
podcast.
right.
So it got me into his mastermind. After I was in his mastermind, I was on his podcast again.
Mm.
And um, somebody heard me on his podcast and became an agency client. So agency clients, they pay thousands of dollars a month. So I got an agency client who listened to that podcast, who sent me an email, heard you on the podcast, want to talk, about you, want to talk to you about helping me promote this product that I have. So he was a client for a few months. And then Pat invited me to speak with him on stage at Podcast Movement. So then I'm speaking on stage with Pat Flynn to a bunch of podcasters. So it was like that, all of those things would not have happened if I wasn't on his podcast right when I got out of TV. And another thing I want to mention about, because a lot of people be like, oh, well, yeah, I can't get on Pat Flynn's podcast. When I got on Pat's podcast, nobody knew who I was. I was
Mhm.
just at a TV, and I just stood out when I pitched him because I created a video. Because I heard him say somewhere that he gets like 400 pitches a day, but he never gets like a video pitch. So I was like, all right, I created a 2-minute video, I pitched myself quickly. Um, Sent him the like unlisted link on YouTube and noticed a couple weeks later that he hadn't watched it. So I sent it again and I followed up, and that's how I got on his podcast. So it's just like that one podcast. That's how that led to tens of thousands of dollars, to opportunities. Um, and so much, like even just like getting into his mastermind and learning from everybody in that mastermind, and people in that mastermind making introductions to other people. And I mean, it's just one podcast. If it is strategic, if it's in front of the right people at the right time, it can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And I think that's like the perfect story because it's not so linear, but like the way I always see it in my mind is like this hallway with doors, and you need one door to open to go to the next one. Like, for instance, I
Yeah.
had now a dear friend on a podcast I was doing probably 4 years ago. Had him on the podcast. He ended up being local in New Jersey. We then not only recorded the show, but we met up for coffee. So we like built a relationship. And he hosts these speaking engagements every single year. And he's like, Bridget, I want you to come speak. So I'm like, absolutely. Let me come speak. We continue developing a relationship. Sometimes we'd go grab more coffee. Sometimes we do just like a little text, like, hey, how are you? And then he invited me to speak in London and paid me for that. So it's like one thing leads to something else. And I think we have to be, as business owners too, just kind of aware of some of these things that happen for us that aren't just I posted this and made this, or I posted this ad and this was I forget the ad terminology, but whatever it is, like ROAS, return on
Yeah.
ad spend. It's bigger than that. I think we have to look at it from that perspective too.
Yeah, and I think just in our industry, like the ROI question and the how does this translate into conversions, it's so hard for us to do it. And I hope I mean, I know data and stats and all of that is important, but like when you ask people how they make their buying decisions, or why did you get that, or why did you hire that person, 9 times out of 10, it goes back to something that can't be tracked by clicks,
Mhm.
or something that can't be tracked by impressions or reach or whatever. So I hope we get away from like measuring stuff so rigidly,
Yeah.
because that's not how people do business. And I love your analogy of like the hallway with doors, because that really is how it works. I mean, right now, the way you and I are talking, years ago, my very first online course I ever bought was when I got out of TV news, and it was a course about creating online courses. And there was another girl who did PR in there with me, and her name was Lisa Simone
Mhm.
Richards. This was probably 2016, I would guess, if not 2015. And we connected once, and ever since then, I mean, dear God, we're going on 10 years. We have chatted every Friday morning for half an hour,
Wow.
just like a quick little accountability call. Like she actually, she said, hey, I'm coming down to Florida because my business coach is having an event. And I was like, oh, well, she was in Orlando. I was like, that's quick. I'll just meet you there. And drove 3 hours up to Orlando. And at that event, I hired my first business coach. And it was that first business coach that where I learned stuff and I met people and it changed the trajectory of my business. And that would not have happened if I didn't meet Lisa in that online course. And so we've made introductions, we've emailed each other's lists for each other. She sent me an email last week like, hey, I met this girl named Bridget. You should be on her podcast. Here you guys go, connect. Like, that's how this stuff works. And I feel like something that I think I should get better at is like I've met a lot of people in a lot of different places, but I feel like I need to be more strategic about the people that I connect with and the people I'm very bad at like maintaining the relationship just because there's so many people. There's the people on LinkedIn and Instagram and in person and all of the things. So I just feel like it's like the door thing you said. Like one door leads to another, and you never know where it's going to go. You never do. But as long as you're always surrounding yourself and talking to people, um, and don't think just because somebody's not interacting with you on social media, it doesn't mean they don't know what you're doing. Like I just had somebody reach out to me about a client, a potential client, and they follow me on LinkedIn. They're just a lurker. You know what I mean? Like we see what everybody's doing. We don't have to comment, we don't have to like, but as long as people know what you're doing and you're open about it and you do PR on your PR is what I say, like practice what you preach and just get it all out there. Like the doors will kind of show up and the doors will open.
I love this. I had chills as you were telling that story. So we'll absolutely tag Lisa in the description of this video because thank you, Lisa, for connecting us together. And you know what? This is such like a great way to kind of round out the conversation. PR is about relationships. At the end of the day, too, like having those relationships with your writers, with the anchors, like real people are on the other end of the screen when you're sending a pitch to someone. So I think it's really important for us to like remember that relationships are this is so like overused, but lifeblood of business. And one thing that Lydia and I have actually done with this show is we host a like networking event. So all of the people that we've interviewed can then meet each other because we're like, you guys rock. And now you guys need to meet each other. And it, as you said, like it is hard to keep up with all
Yeah.
of the relationships that we have.
Yeah, no, but it's so good. Like, I just got an amazing role at a European company where I act as the PR and communications manager. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for like a LinkedIn friend, where I was like lurking on his posts. He was lurking on mine. He knew who I was. I knew who he was, but we didn't know each other, knew each other. And he posted something, and I was like, tell me more about this. He's like, oh my God, you'd be perfect. Come on, let's do
Love
this.
that.
So, like, just be very like present and in the moment and pay attention to what's going on around you and what people are talking about. And I think like it could lead to all good things.
It really can. This is a very cool conversation. I'm sure you and I could continue riffing for probably hours on lots of different subjects and topics. So thank you so much for being here. How can people connect with you, follow you, all those good things?
Oh my gosh, I'm in all the places. On social, you can find me at Christina All Day. I'm pretty much everywhere there. Um, I have a website. Can I give your audience something free? Can I give
Absolutely.
them a freebie? Okay. So if you go to mediamavenandmore.com slash 35 dash things. I think that's it. Something like that. 35 things, 35 dash things. Um, you can get 35 things to do after you earn exposure. Because that's where the ROI comes. Like you gotta like do PR in your PR. You gotta turn the publicity into profit or else it's pointless. So 35 things to do, not just after you earn publicity, but after you create content. Just a little checklist for you. So you can get that there. And yeah, come join me on Instagram. You can see what books I'm reading.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we didn't even talk about your like free little library thing. I love that.
Oh yes, I have a little free library. I'm a book nerd. Like
Oh,
in my lottery plan is win the lottery and just sit around and read books.
I love that. Mine is be able to buy a larger home so that I can entertain and host a bunch of people all the time. Like I'll just cook for
Oh my
you.
gosh,
Come on
so you're an
over.
extrovert, huh?
I am an extrovert, but I need my alone time too. Like, come over,
Yeah.
I'll cook for you, and then I'm gonna like hermit for a little while and like probably not answer your text right away.
Oh my gosh. I used to be an extrovert and now I'm like My husband will be let's have these. I'm like, no, don't invite people over. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to like hang out with my books. Like, stop. I'm the opposite.
I love it. Well, we will link that. I'll find the right link. We'll link it in the show notes. And just thank you so much for this awesome conversation. I
Oh
appreciate
my
you.
gosh, thanks for having me. It was fun talking to you.
It was. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast. We will be back next week.